suppose if you are an interviewer and if you are interviewing a candidate for uh, an entry level deep learning software engineering position, what are the top 3 skills that you'd like to see in the candidate or on a candidate's resume?
uh, Algorithms and math and statistics. These three things are, universally useful. You can never end up in a situation where knowing more math or knowing more statistics or algorithms is a bad thing. That's almost never the case. So these are three sort of core areas that I would always focus on. And then the other thing that's always important is workability with other people. We it's not as if we work in isolation from everyone else. We have to work with other people. We have to be acceptable to them. We have to be nice to them. We might be better or we might be worse, but we need to be in the position where the other person enjoys working with us. Because at the end of the day, one person can't create all of this stuff by herself or himself. And so it's very important that the person have the sort of personality and work culture that encourages other people to work with them rather than discourages other people from working with them. That's a second skill that I would look at. And the third skill that I would look for is curiosity and passion, right? I mean, for some people, their job is just a way of earning a paycheck and they get their satisfaction in life from other things. And I'm not against that. Everyone's in their own position. But what I find is that if you're looking for someone who, will stay up till 3 in the morning trying to debug something, it's usually only because a labor of love for them. And that's a very important skill. And especially when you're breaking into some area and you're young, that's something that you can easily do that, a person who's equally passionate, who's older, may not be able to do just because of life's pressures. So that's those three things I would look for in someone. Those three skills are something that I would value.
Mm-hmm. No, I think those 3 are absolutely the most required skills. So there are a lot of resources available online, right? Today, like on YouTube, here and there are tons of resources, and most of them are good as well. So how one can distinguish which resource to follow to prepare for any interview and which resource to avoid? So are there any specific resources that you would recommend for preparation of deep learning software engineering interviews?
So in my opinion, good resources for learning about deep learning are there's a set of books that I can recommend. One of them is a book called Deep Learning by Ian Goodfellow and Joshua Bengio and a couple of other people. Another source are the papers themselves. So one of the things that I think many people don't know about that is actually a very positive thing for this world is that there's this website out there called Archive. It's a free website. You don't have to pay anything for it. But as a rule, a lot of scientific papers are submitted to the archive before they make their way to a journal. And so the archive ends up becoming a free source for accessing genuine scientific literature, the exact same literature that gets published, but without having to pay for the journal fees. Now, what the journal brings to this is the journal brings the editorial process. And what happens is that eventually, after the journal has accepted a paper for review, the paper ends up getting revised on the archive. It's up to date. So you can always be sure that if you look at a paper on the archive, it is as correct as one can possibly be. And one just has to be careful to make sure that it is published or has been submitted for publication, because in principle anything can be submitted to the archive. This is part of the reason why academic journals exist, is because there's a peer review process there, which does not happen in the archive. So my suggestion is, combine the habit of reading sources like Medium, the morning paper, with actually going on the archive and looking at the papers that are published there. Thankfully, the research being done in the field is generally, pretty easy to understand. It's not as complicated as some of the more modern math tends to become. And so it's possible for most people to follow these papers without getting lost in a lot of math. And typically these papers also have a GitLab component or a GitHub component. And it's very important to go look at that, because it turns out that the paper may not describe something in enough detail for you to be able to understand what's happening mathematically. But the sort of gold standard there is the actual software that is posted on GitHub. Well-known books in deep learning. The Goodfellow book is a good starting point, and move to sources like Medium and the morning paper, but back it up with an examination of the actual research papers themselves. They're freely available on archive, arxiv.org.
That's great. Yeah, because as per my knowledge, I think most of the journals or like the research paper, they're available only when you take the subscription of these big journal platforms. But good to know that there is a platform where they're available for free. Okay, so here's my next.
Very,
Sorry, Vishal, I think I lost you for a second.
I said
Yeah,
that the archive is a treasure trove of information, and it's all original research, the same as you'd get out of the journal.
that is amazing. That's really good to know. Perfect. So Vishal, as you have been working in this domain for a very, very long time, what are the most pressing challenges that you face in your everyday job as a deep learning software engineer?
I think the biggest challenge that I face in my everyday job as a deep learning software engineer is getting unstable code to work. So, I work in very close to the hardware, and I work on the system before it's frozen. So this is when the hardware is being designed. You want to design the hardware correctly, and the only way to do that is to run the hardware, run real workloads on the hardware. But since the hardware isn't ready yet, you don't have the option of running on the hardware. It doesn't even exist. And so what you have to do is you have to use various simulators that are designed to mimic how the hardware will run. And usually there's a range of them, with increasing fidelity. And as a rule, because the hardware is not yet ready, and because the specifications have not yet been frozen, these simulators rarely ever run completely flawlessly. And so you always have to go in and sort of figure out, okay, what's going wrong. And then you have to contact the people who work on the simulator and say, hey, I think this is not quite how it should be. And then they say, yeah, we need to fix that. And then you work together with them to find a fix, and get it in the emulator so that it can be run past that point. So that happens a fair bit.
Okay, perfect. So Vishal, if I'm going for an interview for a deep learning position, so what should I thought through before going to an interview?
One of the things that um, people would value is if you show some curiosity about the field. See, again, it comes down to demonstrating passion. In my opinion, passion is the single most useful quality to have in someone if you want them to do something. People do all sorts of crazy things because out of passion. There are people who've tried to go to the North Pole and the South Pole. There are people who've tried to climb mountains just because they're passionate about it. Now, how do you show that passion is the question. See, your resume and your accomplishments, they show that you are, someone who's able to learn new things and to grasp new concepts, and someone who does a great job of programming. But at the end of the day, if you want to stand out, you can demonstrate your passion for the job that you're applying for. And the only real way to demonstrate that is by showing curiosity. See, a person who's not passionate is not curious, as a rule. It takes passion to drive curiosity. And so one thing that I think you could do to prepare for an interview is, if someone asks you the question, what is your favorite deep learning paper, or what is the favorite set of papers in deep learning that you've run across that you're thinking about right now, have a good answer for that question. I can't answer it for you, I can certainly point you in directions that I find personally interesting. But what that demonstrates to the person who's interviewing you is that this person cares so much about the area and the field that they're going out of their way to learn more about it, and that's a very powerful indicator. So that's my advice and my suggestion. The other
Hmm.
thing is make sure that your basic statistics are in place. So machine learning departs from statistics very quickly, but the original foundations of machine learning, the original sort of area of human reasoning that machine learning comes out of is very much statistics. And so it's still important for a person to know how to think in statistics and what basic concepts and principles are in statistics, because that kind of foundation is very strong for being able to reason in machine learning.
Job search strategy for deep learning software engineer position. There are a lot of job portals available, uh, and I think the networking in the referral works the best. But what would you recommend? What are the areas or what are the groups that you would recommend to join where candidates can find the most recent open positions in this industry?
Various groups and various websites. So LinkedIn, for example, a lot of positions get posted there. Companies obviously always have their own job boards where they list open positions. But really, I think the most powerful force there is networking. I think the most powerful force there is to you know form a relationship with someone, and don't try to make it a relationship that is purely about getting a job. It has to be a deeper relationship than that. And when you've established that sort of relationship, you will automatically find jobs that are a good fit. Now, this is not so much for people who are breaking into the field, breaking into, coming straight out of university. But once you've had a job or two, you really have to take all the recruiters that you can find and treat them with, all the respect and dignity that they deserve. I mean, they do very hard jobs, and you cannot dismiss them. Never ignore them, never simply write back, I'm not looking. Be nice to them, because even if they're not recruiting for a job that you are interested in today, if you tell them what it is that you're interested in, they may come across that sort of position, a week from now, a month from now. And when they do, they'll think of you, because they'll remember that you were this nice person that spoke well with them, explained what they were trying to do. And the first person that they'll then turn to is yourself. Are you interested? Is this something that you're interested in? So that's my suggestion. Events that you can meet other people in the field at are also very important. So for example, there are various conferences and seminars that you can go to where you can meet people. But the key is to not approach it with the mindset of I want a job. The key is to approach it with the mindset of I want to learn about something interesting, or I want to do something interesting. And I'm looking for people who want to do the same thing, so we can all work together to get it done.